Well, we're talking all things rugby here today on Game On, and I'm joined by Mac Masinga, former Lions player, and now with the SA Legends. Mac, how are you doing?
Thank you very much, and you?
I'm doing very well. But now we got to get down to the crux of what you're here for. Mac, we got to talk a little bit about the Legends. How important is this initiative?
It's very important in terms of just growing the game in South Africa, and of course just making sure that we give back. This is an organization that started about 12 years back, if I'm not mistaken, where a group of former past players, they got together and they realized that we needed just to do something and giving back, and obviously, to the people. And of course, with a non-organization company, everyone was very happy just to do that because as the players, we know exactly, what is needed in order, for these up and young and coming youngsters just to make it in life.
Now, you talk about going into impoverished areas. How important is the fact that their role models are now there in that environment, teaching them a new game?
Well, one thing that is very important when you really want to give back to the kids is that you got to get the right people. You got to get people that have played in that higher level, and you got to get people that the kids will listen to. I mean, you got to get people that are passionate about the game, and this is where now you'll probably just get the best out of the legends, and of course with the players, because these are the players that the kids used to see on TV that are looking up to. I mean, give you an example, someone like John Smith-Yost, I can name the few, Henny Miller and all those guys. Those are the guys that, the kids always, they used to see on TV, but now the same players are right there by them in their ghetto, where they stay, they're doing the rugby thing. It cannot get better than this.
Oh, well done.
Going out there, are we being more assertive? And more importantly, to black players, are we unearthing these diamonds in the rough?
Well, we are doing our bits, but personally, I still think that, there's more that can be done. Because imagine if we had an organization like us, maybe 4 or 5 of them, even 10 of them in the country just doing exactly the same thing. I think we're going to fast-track these kids as much as we can. And I think the key aspect of it, yes, we are using rugby, but then again, we are looking at their life orientation aspect, how they need to carry themselves. Because at the end of the day, there's always life after rugby. So it's more about education as well, just looking after them and showing them the right way. Just to give you an example, there's a big project that is happening in Cape Town. We call it, VUCA, Cup, where those players, most of the bunch of those players, the majority of those players, they come from the Cape Flats, where there's drugs, there's everything, there's alcohol. But now we said, well, hang on, after school, get involved, play sport. Sport, it can look after you. Sport, you can do a lot about sport. You can just stay away from the miss, chief and all that stuff, which is what we want to see, what we want to do.
You just said that, you put it in perfect terms. You want the kids to evolve. And it's not necessarily just being rugby players, but getting into administrative roles or even giving them leadership qualities which are life lessons. For you personally, you didn't have this stepping stone as a rugby player in your career. The differences now, between now and then.
Yeah, I think the difference is now, SA Rugby, I know for a fact that they're putting so much pressure now onto the unions just to do more development in the unions, in the location and all that stuff, which I think it is very good. But once again, it's not enough, to be honest. It's not going to be enough. We've got a whole lot of kids that are out there that are just looking to do something. Some of them, they play a little bit of soccer, they leave soccer. Some of them, they play a little of cricket. It's exactly the same as cricket, it's same. So funny enough, the symptoms of sport in this country, they're more or less the same. The up and young and coming players of color not coming through as much as we would have liked to. Although there are people in the background, some of the people are putting so much pressure, they want to make things happen. But some of the people, in terms of their mindset, they still haven't really just changed in order just to help these kids to make sure that, they make it. And then, of course, there's a big hoo-ha about the lots of talents that we do have. So sometimes if you've got too much talent, you tend to just take only a few that and then you leave the rest.
We talked about the Varsity Cup and bridging that gap between schools rugby and now going on to playing for your province or for the national side. How important has that tournament been in the bigger scheme of things?
Very important. Some of these kids, they come from school, they think they're the heroes. They think, they've played first team, they used to be worship, and boom, all of a sudden they're at varsity. It's tougher, it's bigger. There's more players that are there. There's even better players than you, and then you got to play against the other universities. Now it's just totally different story. Hence now, the idea of introducing the under-20 Varsity Cup team, obviously after the seniors, I think it was a very great idea, because the same team that there's the same players that used to play for the first team in all their schools Craven Week. These are the players that actually make that under-20 team. After the under-20 team, then they gradually move on to the senior team, which plays in the bigger competition, which I think it is a key, because I think at the end of the day, it's just all about getting all these players active. It's just Monday competition. It's great to see everyone is watching it. Crowds are there. Players are enjoying themselves. We're not really just taking them out of their system. They're still in the university with their friends, and they're loving it. And one of the great things is that you do find the top coaches or, the scouts that are there that are poaching these players and giving them good contracts.
Mac, another thing that's really been a hot topic of discussion with regards to athletes and rugby players in particular is drugs within the school level. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, it is big. We can't really hide it. And I think one thing that used to happen, I think now it has changed a bit, because now those kids at school, they do get tested. Just for some reason, players will always just push their boundaries, and there's so much pressure as well into the players. And you will get players that will try and take some enhancement and all that stuff. But then again, it's all about the education thing, because some of the players, they don't even know that in the long run, this thing will never work. I mean, I had players that were in our era that really took these things, and then they were banned for like 2 years or so and all that stuff. And then if you look at those players, if you really ask them, why are you doing it? It's all about that competitiveness and edge as well, that the players
do you find that a lot of the players are also a bit naive as to what they're taking in terms of, you have all these supplement products and things like that. Is there a sense of naivety around that, or are they well educated? Should they be making those mistakes?
Well, I'm not trying to defend them, but honestly, there's so much pressure to make it up on top for these players. And then you are going to find players that will try and take shortcuts. It doesn't make it right. But I think with more education with the players, what do they need to take, with them working hard and training hard, they should really make it. Because you know what, I think it's been proven as well that even if you take these things, the difference that you're making is probably like 1%. So why would you risk your career or your life after rugby just for that 1%? People think that the bigger the better and all that stuff, and all the players wants to be nice and strong and be buffy instead of being explosive and fast and all those things, agility and all that. So it's all about the education.
I have to ask you, with the SA Legends being involved in development, is that one of the main driving forces as well to educate the players and not about taking drugs and doing all of those?
Well, there are classes. I mean, I'm glad you've asked me that. There are actually proper classes where our guys that are in our program are going in onto the classes and being taught what to do, what not to do.
Your predictions now on Super Rugby. A few South African teams looking pretty hot. Is it that time where there might be the axe coming for Alistair Coetzee?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Alistair Coetzee, I think he has done very well. They know what he can do. I mean, he's probably one of the most successful coach around in SA, although they haven't really won the big things. I mean, playing against semi-final, and final Currie Cup and final Super Rugby semi-final, it's not a child's play. He has done very well. But it's just that sometimes, that 1 or 2 decision that can cost you a game in a semi-final and final. And really, it just doesn't really make a coach to be, a bad coach. It's exactly the same as the players. If a player have a bad game today, it doesn't mean that he's a really bad player. So I think it's the same as coaches. But I think we all know that one person that needs to go first is probably the coach if anything happens to a team.
Well, that's usually the first thing that happens, right? So I have to ask you, Jake White has now come back. You've alluded earlier to the fact that John Smith's with the Sharks.
Yeah.
Are they going to go all the way?
Well, they should. They must. They have to, in my knowledge. Because if you look at them, for me, I think they've got probably almost everything. They've got the better forwards, so much experience in their forwards with the Mark du Plessis, Beastim Tawarira, I mean, Mark being a captain. They've got good structures, and then they've got a good coach with so much experience. Jayquat is very successful, and the Sharks as well, just riding from last year when they won the Currie Cup. And then they have to win. It's a must for them to win. Personally, I think the pressure is on them because they've got the best structures, the best coaching system. Jayquat is there, perhaps maybe with his little bit of luck. Although I personally think that they haven't played their best rugby, but they've won their game, just picking up some bonus points. So I wonder if they can really fire with all cylinders.
Moving to the Springboks now, we've had a really good season. We beat everyone there is to beat, except obviously the All Blacks. How far off are we from the All Blacks and where they are in terms of speed, pace, love, passion?
Yeah, look, one day me and you will probably just go to New Zealand and just have fun and just stay there for like a month or so, just to really get to understand how serious they take their rugby. They're real rugby mad, country. From the lady that you'll probably meet in the grocery shop. If you play for the Lions, they'll tell you that, hey, are you Mac Masinga? You are the one that knocked the ball, 2 weeks ago when you played against the Chiefs. So that's how passionate those guys are. Because remember, they've got nothing else except rugby. So they're so passionate about it. And then, of course, the way they played rugby as well, their skill level, there's no doubt about it. It's just way up above our players purely because of our players, the way we want to play the game. We want to lose our bulk, our strongness and all that stuff. Sometimes this is where we probably they catch us off guard a bit because them, sometimes they can change the game plan where they want to play the ball from wherever, and they do get away with it. But then again, I'm very happy just to see the way Henekamea has done for the Springboks because, he's gone back to our strength and we're trying just to maximize it as much as we can. But then again, we're not far off. But last year, the game that we played against them at Ellis Park, I really thought that, we were going to really come back strongly and beat them. But just the way they just came back, just scoring some.
Well, that's
tries.
the thing with the New Zealand side. They always have a tendency in the last 15 minutes to produce it. For my understanding and watching that game, the Boks matched them blow for blow in that game, and it shows that we can play explosive running rugby.
Yeah. But we got to sustain it. Yeah,
that's the main issue.
We got to sustain it. And Henekamea, I think he has done very well as well as a coach. Slowly but surely, he is trying to find his probably best team that can go and beat New Zealand. It's pretty simple. We still got the Tri-Nation, well, the old Tri-Nation now, they call it the Four Nation Championship. We are going to be playing them this year away and at home. So we got to beat them. That's it.
Well, how far are we? Well, we've talked about the fact that we are not that far off. Are we legitimate contenders for the World Cup?
Yes, we are. Especially if it's going to be in Europe, it might really just suit us. We've got big forwards. We like just to keep it close. Our players are very powerful. We can play a kicking game in terms of just playing to the corners. In terms of structure-wise, we're very good with that. It might really just suit us, I tell you what, because if we were playing in a dry weather, this is where now you would have probably seen the likes of Australia coming through because they don't have those big guys that they can bulldoze. They like just playing the ball around and making sure that they exploit the space and all that stuff. They're not playing direct rugby. But from there, when we're playing in Europe, it can really suit us because we can kick. We've got fly halves that they can make sure that, they put us in the front foot. And of course, we've got big men.
So do you see?
Do the damage
so do you see your fellow Lion making inroads in there in terms of Elton Jantjies and Maurits Boshoff, who's playing amazing rugby right now?
It's going to be tough for them because Henekamea is one of those guys that if he has set his mind on a certain player, he will stick to that player and he will really back him unless if there's a couple of injuries. But with Boshoff, the way he's been playing, because it's all about, the fly half that will make sure that, he just gets the point. I mean, for a player that can average about 30 points or well, even 20 points or even 25 points in one game, I will never leave him in my team.
Well, there you have it. We've unpacked everything that is in rugby here on Game On today. I'm Pash Kamundlia and Mac Masinga has joined me.